A door star to a despised traitor. This is the story of Luis Figo, the most controversial transfer in football history. From Catalan pride to Madrid Galactico, this transfer reshaped the sport as we know it today. Picture this: the year is 2000. FC Barcelona and Real Madrid, two renowned clubs at the pinnacle of the sport. Luis Figo, a player at the height of his individual career and the best in the world at the time. In Madrid, Florentino Perez is running for presidency, and his campaign was unlike any other. Specifically the words, "If I become president and Figo doesn't come, I'll pay for your season tickets," sticks with fans. And on July 24th, the unthinkable becomes reality. Luis Figo is unveiled as a Madrid player for 62 million euros, the greatest transfer fee of all time. Cameras flash, millions are betrayed, and history shifts. This wasn't just a player transfer, it was something more. It was a move representing deviance and symbolic betrayal. Betrayal at a level never anticipated before. The shared cultural values around identity and pride for Barcelona fans were broken. Figo was something more than an athlete. He was a symbol. He was an entire identity. Shared values, customs, rituals, social organizations, and chants such as Visca Barça and Visca Catalunya all reinforced this identity that was ruthlessly shattered. To effectively understand the magnitude of this transfer, we must first delve into how the El Clasico rivalry mirrors a deeper political cultural divide. Barcelona served as a symbol representing the identity and resistance of Catalonia, a small region in Spain, against Madrid, a club symbolizing power and central authority. The rivalry between the two is rich, beginning over a century ago. From a sociological perspective, conflict theory can be identified. The rivalry was rooted deep within structural tensions, and Figo's transfer exposed inequalities of power between the rich Madrid and historically suppressed Barcelona. Further attempting to understand the enrage of Barcelona fans at the time. To be Barca was to be not Madrid, as quoted by a fan. The animosity towards Madrid fueled their judgment of Figo from their own lens and biases, which is an example of ethnocentrism rather than cultural relevantism. To truly understand Figo's motives and what external factors might have caused the transfer to actually occur. Furthermore, they demonstrated in-group and out-group behavior as their hatred grew over time. Now, to truly understand what factors actually influenced Figo's decision, we must first comprehend Perez's role within the saga. As I mentioned earlier, Florentino Perez was running for presidency, and he monopolized the best player in the world, strategically using and manipulating him in order to get what he wants, the presidency. At the time, Figo was dissatisfied with his wages at Barcelona, and him and his agent made an agreement that if Perez were to win the presidency, Figo would have to join Madrid, and if he decided not to, he would have to pay 30 million euros, which nor the agent or Figo had at the time. A presumably safe move to increase his salary ended up turning into the complete opposite, as Perez centered his campaign around the signing of Figo and ended up eventually winning. Capitalism and marketing overtook values like loyalty and sportsmanship, and Figo became a tool in Perez's political and economic game, which is an example of capitalist power struggles, which falls under the sector of sociology. What did Figo have to say about this? Well, he claimed he was misled and manipulated. Clear examples of psychological defense mechanisms such as rationalization, denial, and projection. "I thought Perez would lose," he said in an interview. Figo struggled. Clearly he struggled with cognitive dissonance, playing for a club with an opposing identity to the one he cherished, conflicting between ambition and loyalty. "We think players are gods, but they're people. They carry a heavy burden," he said. Despite the truth behind the psychological harms, his actions demonstrated reasoning from another psychological component, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Figo agreed to the transfer in order to meet his esteem and self-actualization needs, to have a sense of belonging, which he valued through wage. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, cognitive dissonance, defense mechanisms, these are all examples of what occurred throughout this transfer. Now, regardless of what happened behind closed doors, the Barcelona fans simply did not care. To them, it was as simple as shifting his label from hero to traitor. Madrid fans celebrated a symbolic initiation, whilst Barca fans expressed a reverse rite of passage. Figo faced institutional and public discrimination. Additionally, groupthink and dehumanization took place as Figo returned to the Camp Nou, Barcelona stadium, for the very first time in an opposing shirt, in a rival shirt, in a white shirt. Fans made sure to have their voices heard by throwing all kinds of objects, having all kinds of chants and banners, clearly telling Figo what they thought of his decision. 97,000 fans attended his return, which is the most to ever attend Barcelona stadium in its entire history. The atmosphere was described as deafening, with the game being stopped numerous times due to the sheer amount of violence occurring on the sidelines. And the highlight of his return was a pig's head thrown onto the field to symbolize his betrayal. The Barcelona fans experienced betrayal and trauma, threatening their belonging and esteem needs. This memory became lasting and vivid, still talked about today within the fan base. Figo, on the other hand, faced all levels of discrimination, interpersonal with chants such as Judas, a Spanish name for disciple betrayers, institutional with media attacks, and internalized with fans doubting his loyalty and inevitably having him question his own career. Figo assimilated to Real Madrid's culture. He saw rage, not individuals, as quoted by his teammate, and thus, his approval dropped from 90% to under 10% in Catalonia. Figo eventually ended up winning the Ballon d'Or, the most prized personal award in the sport, not for his time at Madrid, but because of his glory at Barcelona, concluding the story of the sport's biggest transfer. Now, what can we make of all of this? Well, the most notable realization was that football was no longer just a game. It's something more. It's a war. The transfer highlights modern football's power, imbalance, and commercialization. Multicultural and political identity, class is reaffirmed through sport, psychological impacts like none other, stress, trauma, and lifelong scarring for some. How can we as a society prevent a series of events like such from occurring again? There are numerous solutions that can be implemented, such as educational initiatives to increase understanding and minimize the gap between players and fans in terms of transparency of emotions, of needs, transfers, and etc. In addition to this, ethnographic research to explore fan identity and emotional impact alongside mental health support programs for athletes to manage stress and public scrutiny will allow for an overall more inclusive and positive sports environment. Nearing a conclusion now, the Figo story weaves identity, which is psychology, culture, anthropology, and power, sociology, all into one moment. Thank you.